Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name's Nick Mays. I'm a pre-sales technology consultant at HPE. I've been with the company a long time. I specialise in storage, so I'll focus on our storage portfolio. Apologies, I can't see the questions. We have got a Q&A chat room, but my colleague Paul Staniford is on mute on the line, and he's available to answer your questions. If you've got any, just tap those into the Q&A box, and hopefully he can give you an answer. If it's a really tricky one, something we haven't got the information to hand, then we will get back to you later, because we can keep a transcript of the Q's and A's. Okay, well, without further ado, I'm going to talk for hopefully around about 55 minutes, if I keep my timekeeping on track. And today's topic is HPE Intelligent Storage for primary workloads. So just to set the scene a bit, what's this all about, intelligent storage? Let me just have a quick look at the text there. All right, so our rationale for philosophy behind this is that data volumes continue to grow ever faster, and obviously IT departments and budgets are still constrained. We used to talk in petabytes. Now I get customers who even talk about exabytes, so it's almost an uncontrollable beast. And the IT stack itself gets ever more complicated. You've got server virtualization, you've got desktop virtualization, VDI, mobile apps, virtual SANs, virtual networks, very unpredictable workloads, but higher expectations from the end users, which has been to a large extent brought about by the consumer experience. Things like mobile apps, we expect instant response. So whilst the end user experience might be getting simpler, for the IT professional, the environment gets ever more complicated. And if there is a problem, if suddenly a storage performance drops by 90%, troubleshooting it becomes really complicated, because you've got all these layers of abstraction like hypervisors and virtual backend storage, etc. And then just to compound that, we've now got the fact that many CIOs, companies are looking at a mixture of hybrid IT on-premise and public cloud. So if you've got applications running in the cloud, well, how do you keep tabs on those or troubleshoot those if they go wrong? So HPE Intelligent Storage, which is something we broadcasted at Discover at the end of last year, there's really three pillars or areas I'd just like to touch on, which encompass a lot of the concerns of customers today. And I'll hopefully give you a flavour of how our technologies can simplify life for our customers, and how you can manage more terabytes with agility, a better service experience, and crucially deliver an always consistently good performance, and also adapt to a hybrid IT model with on-premise and public cloud. So here's the agenda. I'll just quickly recap intelligent storage in terms of the pillars, and then we'll talk a bit about Nimble primary storage, and then 3PAR, followed by memory-driven flash, which is a new market-leading announcement from HPE, and then finishing up with consumption-based IT with HPE GreenLake from our services arm. Now, just to mention that in one of the previous recordings of these twice fortnightly sessions, there was a good description of intelligent storage, the pillars, particularly cloud volumes, etc., in depth. So if you wanted to refer back to those in a bit more detail, by all means do so. So the three pillars of HPE Intelligent Storage are AI-driven. We're making a big use of artificial intelligence, which I'll touch on in a moment. Built for cloud, so you've got the ability to move your workloads between on-premise and public cloud, and then have as a service experience. So that's the three tenets, if you like. Now, the core of our AI-driven, which you may well have heard of, is HPE Infosight, which is very clever software, which in fact we acquired from Nimble when we bought that company. That was 2 summers ago. So this is much more than a web portal. This is running on apparently the largest Vertica database in the world, so I'm told. And since about 2010, it's been collecting literally millions and millions of performance metrics every day from all the deployed Nimble systems in the field. And as we'll see a bit later, it's now doing the same with 3PAR. And it applies artificial intelligence techniques to monitor, diagnose, troubleshoot, and fix problems with our storage systems. Also being extended now to HPE ProLiant servers and in time to other servers, 3PAR as I mentioned. And this is really to address this complexity that I alluded to. And the fact that we've got hypervisors and storage and host bus adapters and drivers and different firmware levels. It's a very difficult environment to keep tabs on. But by having artificial intelligence technology deployed to this, we can give a much better support experience and a 6 nines availability guarantee. And crucially, you might notice at the bottom, we also do things like application cross-stack telemetry, so we can look into the hypervisor, for example, and troubleshoot problems in there. Cloud volumes. Now, this is something that we've had for a little while in the US territory, but later this year, well, in fact, end of May, we're launching HPE Cloud Volumes in the UK and Ireland. And what this will give you is the ability to connect applications running in the public cloud, be it Azure or Amazon, on HPE Cloud Volumes, which you can buy through our channel partners prepaid. These are the Cloud Volume physical hardware is running on Nimble, but that's kind of incidental. That's just for your information. It's running on Nimble, but it's what it gives you is the ability to provide true enterprise class storage with all the features like snapshots and replication and very high performance, very high resilience, and connect those to your applications running in virtual machines in the public cloud. So our Nimble hardware is going to be co-located in physically close proximity to the AWS and Azure data centers. So it will give you that very low latency, high IOPS experience that you need for things like databases or AI applications or proper demanding OLTP type enterprise applications. It's worth noting that the SLAs on public cloud storage are, I believe, only 3 nines, so 99.9%. So in fact, HPE Cloud Volumes are going to be many orders of magnitude more resilient, and you can be assured your storage is going to be there when you need it. And then the third pillar of intelligent storage is the cloud experience. It's really shaped expectations for customers and businesses, and they really expect that type of ease of use and scalability and flexibility with on-premise IT as well now. So the trend that we're seeing is that consumption-based procurement of IT is becoming more and more important to customers. And as it says here, by 2020, possibly 40% of enterprise IT infrastructure spending could be consuming IT as a service. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later on when I talk about GreenLake. Apologies for that. We're adding a new feature in Windows. I can't seem to disable it. So under the umbrella of intelligent storage, we have several product families, as you might expect. We've got HPE 3PAR for tier 1 performance and resiliency, maximum performance, corporate data centers, huge scalability. Nimble is for general purpose workloads, particularly good with VMware workloads. It also scales high and high performance, as I'll show you. And then big data, we have the HPE Apollo series, which packs a huge amount of storage capacity into a small physical footprint and also has the embedded compute capabilities. So this is ideal for for big data applications and software-defined storage and possibly data analytics, that type of application. And then finally, last but not least, secondary storage, we have the HPE Store Once family, which is disk-to-disk based backup appliances, very high throughput with hooks into the cloud, which I might touch on later, and HPE Nimble Adaptive Flash, so that's hybrid Nimble with SSDs plus large capacity SATA drives. So we have a product which hopefully should fit your requirements across a broad spectrum of needs, all backed up with timeless architecture, which is our method of philosophy of guaranteeing you investment protection. For example, when you buy a Nimble system, you can, if you like, opt to take a controller refresh at the end of year 3, keeping the same disks, of course. So that's an example of the timeless philosophy. So, introduction to Nimble. I'll put some little pictures in of what they look like, because I know a lot of particularly technical people like to get a feel for what the platform physically looks like. So, Nimble, we have all flash arrays for high performance primary workloads. These scale up and scale out in that you can independently change the capacity and the horsepower, if you like. Always on data services, quality of service, a rich repertoire of software capabilities in the operating software. 33 to 66% less TCO. Now this is making comparison with other popular competitive all-flash arrays on the market. We assert that we can get 20% more usable capacity by a combination of factors, things like compression, deduplication, triple RAID 6, the sparing algorithms, and we even offer a store more guarantee to back that up, in that, you know, if you want a little proof of concept to prove that we can get more usable as a percentage of raw than the competition, we'll undergo that exercise for you. And then absolute resiliency. So the Infosight predictive analytics and support portal, by virtue of the capabilities that are yielded by that software, we do have a proven track record of 6 nines availability for Nimble, which we can back up with field statistics. So although it might be a mid-range to lower high-end platform in terms of price and capacity and performance, it sacrifices nothing in terms of reliability. So the all-flash array family goes from the AF20 up to the AF80, as you can see, from 128 terabytes effective capacity up to a pretty substantial 4 petabytes. So effective capacity, we're talking here of the usable net of RAID and sparing after compression and deduplication and typical data reduction algorithms. So it's, I wouldn't say it's independent of raw, but it's highly detached from the raw terabytes, and you don't really need to worry about the raw terabytes. It's how much user data can you get on the platform. So as we go up the range, as you might expect, the IOPS capability also increases. There's also the Nimble Adaptive Flash Array, which is a combination of a smaller amount of SSDs, which act as a buffer cache, if you like, and then large capacity SATA drives. Now, by virtue of the architecture, software architecture of Nimble, which is very innovative and clever, I haven't got time to go into it today, but let's just say that the Nimble operating system has a very innovative method of utilizing the 2 tiers of storage. What this means to the end user is that even though we can supply adaptive flash arrays, which are substantially cheaper than the all-flash arrays because they're using big SATA drives, but most of the time, except under conditions of peak workload, you're still going to get excellent performance out of an adaptive flash array. Probably 95% of the time, performance will be indistinguishable. And in fact, the controllers are identical to the ones that are used in the all-flash arrays. So this is ideal for mixed primary workloads where you still want excellent performance, but you're prepared to go for a lower price point if occasionally you could tolerate bursts of longer response times. Also ideal as a second backup target for things like maybe using Veeam when you want to back up to disk, or software-defined backups in that manner, whereby you might want to write to a share or some such. So Nimble is a good cost-effective platform for that as well. The thing is, even though it's we're calling it a secondary flash workload, it still has a decent amount of IOPS capability. So you could, for example, spin up a virtual machine image backup on the secondary platform, so rather than just having to restore it first to primary storage. So again, there's a range of different products, starting with one that goes up to 821 terabytes, all the way up to 5 petabytes. Now, one thing that's very unusual or innovative with Nimble is the fact that the performance and the capacity are independent of one another, which I know must sound a bit odd, but in a traditional disk array, from going back before the all-flash era, one used to provide more and more spindles to provide more performance, and quite often you'd have to design a system with a very large number of spindles in order to be able to deliver the required IOPS, even if you didn't need that much capacity. But with Nimble, the controller board is what determines the ultimate front-end I/O processing capability. And it's possible and almost routine to be able to do controller swaps online non-disruptively. So just to emphasize that, say you bought an entry-level model, 8 months down the road you decide you need more I/O horsepower, you could swap out controller A with a new controller board, and then that one will kick in and start working, and then you do the same with controller B. This is a dual controller architecture. And then once that one comes online, it's like putting a turbocharger in your car, really. So you keep the same disks, but you can go all the way from the entry-level platform up to the most powerful one just by doing controller swaps. So there's an example there of increasing the performance by a factor of 10. Or you might be in the situation where you just want to add capacity, in which case you add more shelves and then increase the capacity. So you don't have to increase both performance and capacity at the same time. And there is a software capability whereby you can cluster up to 4 Nimble arrays as one, again non-disruptively. So if you want to, your capability for non-disruptive headroom and scalability is enormous. So you could start small and grow very big without having to do forklift upgrades, which I think is a very valuable capability. There's a very rich set of data services come with Nimble. So in terms of efficiency, particularly the all-flash arrays, we've got deduplication, always-on compression, thin provisioning, very good plugins to applications, so you can get application consistent snapshots or clones, quality of service, methods or tools, a very comprehensive set of snapshotting and replication facilities, encryption, monitoring with Infosight, so this gives you the cross-stack performance analytics, heat maps, and forecasting and capacity planning. So for example, Infosight might say, based on your current trends, you're going to run out storage in 3 months, please order some more capacity. And a key thing here is all of these features, like compression, for example, these are available even under heavy workload. There's no degradation. So as you ramp up the workload on the system, you're still getting the full repertoire of capabilities that you're going to enjoy and expect. The emphasis with Nimble is on simplicity. So we'll contrast that a bit with 3PAR, but Nimble is great for a company maybe with a few clients or blade systems and VMware, possibly iSCSI or maybe Fibre Channel, but really being managed by a server stroke VMware administrator. But you don't even get a choice of, for example, the RAID level with Nimble, so you can create a volume, and all of them are triple RAID 6 plus, which means it's RAID 6 on steroids and it's got inter-disk parity, so really reliable. But here's an example of creating a volume for Oracle, and when you create it, it'll be a number of defaults, but you can set the attributes you want. So it's all flash array, guaranteed latency of less than a millisecond, compression on, no dedupe because that's not as beneficial for databases. Yes, please for encryption. I want snapshots every 5 minutes, keep them for 14 days. So you get the idea. When you create your volumes and present the storage to your hosts, the system will be automatically applying the best set of tools and software functionality for the volume based on the application that you specify. So it might be SharePoint, it might be Exchange, it might be SQL Server, file and print. So it's all about simplicity. Yeah. So Nimble is very nicely integrated with VMware. A bit of a busy slide there, but you can use it with vVols. You can do application consistent snapshots. You can provision from vCenter. It'll use the VAI interfaces and VADP for doing space reclamation. If you delete space at the vCenter level, it'll be able to reclaim that space at the Nimble level. So it's an excellent match, basically. Again, that reinforces the message. This is a really good product for the smaller shop with a vCenter administrator and a few servers and modest requirements. Although, as you've seen from the earlier slides, you can take it up to very large capacities and performance. Timeless storage business model. So this is all about simplicity of purchasing and usage and consumption again. So all-inclusive software licensing. When you buy a Nimble system, you get all the software from day one, and we don't come back to you down the road when you want to add capacity and say, oh, you've got to buy more software. You get it all from day one. Flat support pricing, be it 3 years or 5 years. So we don't ramp up the support pricing with time. An option for a new controller after 3 years if you wanted that. Give it a midlife kicker by putting in new controller boards. No forklift upgrades. A number of guarantees. So we do a 6 nines guarantee. The store more guarantee I mentioned. This is at the pre-sale stage. If you really want to take us at our word about delivering more effective capacity than the competition. And future-proofing of things like storage class memory and NVMe, which I'll come on to shortly. This was announced at the end of December. This is Recovery Manager Central version 6. So this has been available for a number of years with 3PAR, but this is software that's included with every 3PAR Nimble system, comes as part of the all-inclusive licensing. And it allows you to integrate your storage platform, be it 3PAR or Nimble, with an HPE Store Once disk-based backup appliance. And you can see some numbers there based on VMware environments compared to one of the off-the-shelf backup packages from the big vendors. Using Recovery Manager Central, we could do backups of virtual machines 23 times faster and restore them 15 times faster. So really powerful capabilities. And this comes about by virtue of the fact that there's this tight integration between the block level storage on the disk system and the Store Once system. And then if you wanted, you can even take a further copy of the Store Once into Cloud Bank, which is cloud-based repository. And that's going to be covered in detail on one of the future tech talks. 12th of February, I believe. So this is particularly good for the all-flash environments, because if you've got a very high-performing storage array, you don't want your backups running at like the speed of DAT tapes, for example, for those people who remember those. So very fast backups and multiple snapshot recovery points with RMC goes hand in hand with the expectations of the all-flash environment. On to 3PAR. That's given you a flavour of Nimble. Now we'll talk about 3PAR, which some of you may be aware has been around for a while. I think from memory we acquired the company, I think it was back in around about 2010. Don't quote me on that. The old memory's not quite what it used to be, but it's been a while since we bought Nimble. But I've put this slide in really to emphasise that due to the software abstractions of the 3PAR architecture, it's very amenable to innovation and adapting to new technologies like flash arrays and then storage class memory. So there's been a whole raft of improvements and enhancements over the years, the latest one of which is storage class memory, which we'll talk about next. But so just in case any of our HPE competition might say, oh, it's an ancient system, my message to you is that 3PAR is very much bang up to date, and we're putting in lots of investment to keep it current and relevant to customers. So this is really, in terms of positioning, I mean, there's a lot of overlap. You could buy a Nimble system with just a few disks in, you could buy a 3PAR system with just a few disks in. Performance-wise, there'd be overlap as well, but broad brush speaking, just a general approach, 3PAR is more likely to be found in your large corporate data centers in terms of the big systems on the right there, the 20,000 series or the 9450s. But the 8,000 series, the mid-range, a lot of overlap, as I say, with Nimble, but this is really the most full-featured primary storage that we have. So it's got all sorts of integrations, as you can see, with Microsoft, Docker, Mesosphere, Jenkins, all these new containerized DevApps technologies that are becoming more popular. The traditional ones like VMware. We've shipped some exabytes of flash capacity. So Nimble in its all-flash incarnations is a formidable performer. More than 1 million servers connected, and it's the #1 mid-range SAN, certainly in EMEA, and I think the US as well. We've sold over 75,000 systems over the years. And again, it comes with a 6 nines availability guarantee. So it's very flexible because of all these integrations and broad operating system support. Supports all the major OSs, major switches, host bus adapters, orchestration with the various technologies like Chef and Puppet, and very good at mixed workloads. So it's a great platform for a central data center where you've got, on the big systems, possibly even thousands of virtual machines being hosted. Differentiated to Nimble is that it does offer the capability to do block workloads, file serving and object storage all within the same system. So certainly on the bigger ones, you can have a very large number of host bus adapters, be it NICs or fiber channel, and then you can be presenting out different pools of capacity, some for fiber channel connectivity, some for 10 gig Ethernet, some for file serving, and then a RESTful API. So it's a very good consolidation platform. Nimble, just for reference, we sell that with iSCSI or fiber channel connectivity, but we don't have an inbuilt file serving capability. We can do that with other products, but with 3PAR, it's part of the firmware capabilities. So the beauty here with 3PAR is that you can bring multiple discrete pools of storage under the same management umbrella, and at the back end they could even be residing on the same physical storage media. Very powerful, So you saw the earlier slide with the 8200 at the bottom, which is the controllers a couple of rack units high. So you could start with just 6 SSDs, but then if you wanted to go all the way up to the 20,000 series, that takes you into 1,000 plus SSDs. And the headline number there, we've benchmarked the big 3PAR at 3.5 million IOPS a second. So as a consolidation platform, where you want to host thousands of virtual machines, it's got the horsepower and it's got the capacity and the ability to deliver sub-millisecond latency across all of those apps. So it's a great consolidation platform. And in terms of upgrades, you can start small and add capacity, you can add controllers, you can add disk shells, as you would expect. And all of those can be done online. Just to mention, it's 3PAR is an active array. On the biggest systems, it can have up to 8 controllers. And those 8 controllers each comprise 2 multi-core powerful Intel CPUs plus HPE custom ASICs, which is that stands for Application Specific Integrated Circuit. And we have 2 of those on each controller in the 20,000 series. So the message I'm getting across to you here is that there's an awful lot of compute power for running all of the data services and just the I/O processing within a 3PAR, which is how it can scale up to a massive 3.5 million IOPS. So if your requirement is for very large capacity with sub-millisecond response times, a consistent performance envelope, regardless the amount of VMs you've got, then 3PAR's the man for the job. So it's a highly parallel architecture, which is how it's able to deliver such a high performance. And in fact, when we started to put SSDs into 3PAR, we did upgrade the ASICs, but there was no major rework required at the operating system layer. It was because of the software abstraction and the parallelism inherent in the architecture, we were able to quite easily incorporate SSDs as a new rule-breaking technology or disruptive technology. And because of all this hardware capability, particularly the ASICs, again, like Nimble, all of these data services can be deployed without seeing them suffer as the workload ramps up. 3PAR is also your best choice if you need a really high availability environment. So if you want to do, say, a VMware Metro storage cluster split site configuration, whereby VMware could orchestrate a failover between 2 sites with 3PAR on each. Same with HPUX Service Guard clusters or Microsoft Windows clusters, Oracle Rack clusters, SUSE, Red Hat, Citrix. So to build an ultimate configuration which is more resilient than even a single 3PAR system, then 3PAR has that rich repertoire of value-added solutions. So we have recently, or fairly recently, rolled out Infosight for 3PAR. So as well as collecting the metrics from all of those Nimble systems, there's now several tens of thousands of customers who've registered their 3PAR systems onto Infosight. So it's collecting data from the 3PAR systems on a daily basis as well. And providing things like cross-stack analytics. So provided you've got the right OS version, which is 3.3.2 onwards on 3PAR, if you get a performance problem, say, you'll be able to, using Infosight, it will be able to look into VMware and perhaps say, oh, this isn't a storage problem, it's a hypervisor problem. And it's worth noting that Infosight has revealed to us that of perceived storage problems, more than a half of them in practice tend to lie outside the storage, another part of the infrastructure. So it might be a SAN fabric with an out-of-date version of firmware, or perhaps a problem with memory leaks or snapshots, or something not pertaining to storage itself. But Infosight provides excellent capabilities for drilling into that wider infrastructure, so it's a very valuable feature. And here's an example of how machine learning and Infosight has helped 3PAR customers. So this is a real case study, if you like. We had an incident a few months back whereby a 3PAR customer suffered some data unavailability, i.e. some of his volumes were blocked. And it turned out to be due to a memory leak in, it was to do with VSS, I think, so it was Microsoft shadow copy services in conjunction with the 3PAR plugin. So eventually the system, the operating system, was getting exhausted of its memory resources, causing a freeze. But by using the information available to us at Infosight, the technicians in the support lab were able to work out what the problem was, what was causing it, and then identifying other customers whereby they predicted in just a matter of time they'd get the same problem. So within 24 hours of the first incident, there was a patch created and 45 vulnerable customers were identified, and they were sent an automated patch message to say, please apply this non-disruptive update, even to the extent of we could predict which day they were going to run out of memory. So this is really powerful capability, and it just goes to really, it's a proof point that applying AI machine learning to the support experience can really cut through the horrendous complexity now inherent in the software stack. And just to mention that some customers like to have a dark site, i.e. they don't permit internet connectivity to our support portal. So there is a standalone subset of the capabilities in SSMC 3.4, that's the 3PAR store serve management console. So it's an AI offshoot, if you like, which can be run on premise to give you the administrator valuable insights into what's happening inside the storage system. So eliminates the guesswork and allows you to troubleshoot much quicker, can come up with recommendations for optimizing performance, but it's using that technology, that capability from Infosight. All right, just keeping an eye on the clock here, conscious I need to speed up a bit. So memory-driven flash, this is something we announced at Discover as well. We're calling it memory-driven because in release 1, we're deploying it as an extra caching layer below the RAM in the system. So it's being driven by memory algorithms rather than traditional I/O requests, read or write. So this chart, I'll just let you have a quick look at that for a second. So going back a few years, we had hard drives, response times 5 to 10 milliseconds, probably longer once systems got loaded. But that was a state of technology, and you could have 15,000 RPM drives if you wanted something a bit faster. But that was the state of play. And then we had SSDs come along with approximately an order of magnitude faster improvement in response time. So we could get down to sub-millisecond response. But the latest innovation, which we're using in the form of Intel Optane, this is SCM, and this is another order of magnitude improvement. So we're now talking 10 microseconds rather than 90 microseconds response time. And this is very important when it comes to very latency sensitive apps. DRAM, which is obviously dynamic random access memory, this is what you'll have in a disk arrays cache, and then CPU at the top of the pile with the fastest responsive tool of all, because it's got to onboard caching. But in terms of density, cost and performance, as you move up the scale, as you might expect, the capacities per unit or per device get smaller, and the cost goes up along with the performance. So nearly all storage platforms have a multi-tiered approach, and indeed in the past we sold a lot of 3PARs with slow SATA drives, and then fiber channel or SAS drives, and then SSDs. So what we're doing now is implementing storage class memory above the SSDs, or in between the DRAM and the SSDs, as a caching layer. And this is important. So some of the other vendors on the marketplace have already got SSDs using NVMe protocol. So just to clarify, NVMe is really a replacement for the SAS protocol, and it's a highly parallel protocol, which is much better suited to these much faster RAM-like devices. So NVMe acts as an enabler for these new technologies that are coming out, and it has the capability of being much quicker than SAS, and can scale to much greater levels of parallelism. As you can see from the chart here, at the moment, the largest dominating factor in the response time for a read is in fact this lower bar here is the response time of the media. So if you have a disk array with NVMe plus SSD, okay, you save a bit of time on the controller response because you've got more parallelism, you've got more PARs, greater throughput. But overall, you're just making an incremental improvement. It's nothing dramatic. But if you combine NVMe with storage class memory, then we're talking an order of magnitude improvement, 10x. So that's a lot more exciting. And HPE is first to market with an NVMe plus SCM combination, which doesn't require a forklift upgrade. Okay, so 3PAR, this applies to the 9000 series and the 20000 series, not unfortunately the 8000 series, and that's due to physical real estate. The controller units on the 8000s are physically only a couple of rack units, and unfortunately we just haven't got the space to put them into the chassis. So the bigger systems, the 9450 and 20000, they have much physically bigger controllers with lots of board slots for connectivity options, which is why we're offering the SCM capability in those platforms. So fits nicely with the highly parallel architecture of 3PAR, and by plugging in extra boards, one per controller, or extra module really, it allows us to deliver sub 200 microsecond latency for read requests to those boards. So here's what it looks like, again, for those interested. So if you want to upgrade your 3PAR 20000 or 9000 series, you can purchase one per controller node. So you have to put them equally, one in each. You can't just put one in one node. And that arises from the active-active architecture of 3PAR. Every virtual volume is getting serviced by every processor all the time, rather than an active standby. So we're putting in one of these boards per controller. On the bigger system, the 20000, that would be 6 terabytes of memory-driven flash. So this is ideal for very latency-sensitive applications such as transaction processing, complex analytics. There's a lot of talk in the industry, and indeed even on the TV advertising at the moment, about artificial intelligence. You see these ads about AI, things like self-driving cars, etc. So AI applications in particular, the better the performance you can give, the quicker the response time from your storage, the faster you can train the system. So that's a very up and coming application. And any big data type analysis application or big databases, application acceleration by extremely low latency is an ideal application for this. Also, just as a bit of a turbocharger, if you like. So SSDs, I was talking to another customer not so long ago, back with the old HPE EVA, which was about, let's think, 7 years ago. I think we had something like a 73 gigabyte SSD, so 73 gigabytes. Now on 3PAR, we go up to 15 terabyte SSDs. But of course, much like with hard drives, the capacities have got bigger and bigger, but the IOPS have remained the same. So over time, your IOPS density per SSD drops. You've got less IOPS per terabyte to play with. But by putting in a caching layer of SCM, that acts a bit like a turbocharger and can boost the overall performance of the entire system if you've got a big multi-tenant consolidation platform or 3PAR with lots and lots of apps on it. And here's an example of some benchmarking we did internally just to evaluate it. So HPE Synergy with a 3PAR 9450, a couple of switches there, and a nice big meaty Oracle database. It's probably best if you get a chance to have a look at the slide in a bit more detail if you want to see the replay later or if the slides are made available. But the bottom line is, apologies for all the in-depth print here, but this was using the Canary tool to look inside the database. So rather than an average service time at the Oracle level of 0.338 milliseconds, it was basically slashed in half, a 52% improvement. So if you've got a big Oracle application and you're licensed by a number of cores, etc., and that's a very effective way of boosting the performance and possibly even lowering your licensing costs just by putting in storage class memory. And 3PAR handles this very well because the architecture has been designed and has lots of proven track record with multi-tiers of storage. As I mentioned, we've long had systems with SATA drives, SAS drives, and SSDs, and this is just another layer. Nimble as well will be getting the same technology, I think, end of second quarter this year. So the larger Nimble all-flash arrays will also be able to do a non-disruptive upgrade by adding storage class memory. A Nimble is, by virtue of its operating system, the way it functions, that will be an excellent vehicle for utilizing capabilities storage class memory. It'll be very effective the way it uses it. All right, on to our final topic, and thank you for those of you who are still staying alert, so hopefully finding it useful. But consumption-based IT with HPE GreenLake. So GreenLake is our branding for services and an experience delivered by our HPE Point Next services organization. And we do have a number of off-the-shelf, if you like, full solution packages for some of the most popular or important business applications. And you can see on the screen here, for example, a full managed service around SAP HANA or open source database with Postgres. So the idea of GreenLake is that this can deliver you as the end customer, this can deliver the cloud-like, flexible, agile, no hassle experience that you get from the public cloud, but deployed and managed on-premise using HPE infrastructure. So if you have one of these custom-made, off-the-shelf solutions for backup, for example, we would install the infrastructure and the equipment required to run it. It'd still be under customer control. You would direct how it should be set up and configured and run on a day-to-day basis, but you're offloading the responsibility for managing it and upgrading it, tuning it, maintaining it to HPE. So it's on-premise infrastructure delivered as a service and costed by business metrics. So maybe number of terabytes backed up, for example, or amount of SAP HANA IOPS per month. So it allows you to have that cloud-like experience on-premise and based or costed on your consumption. So you get and pay for the resources when you need them. You can get fast delivery of solutions because it's going to be deployed by Point Next consultants. You still retain control, and this is important for things like data sovereignty, perhaps, and security issues, because there's an issue with the public cloud possibly about, well, where's my data residing? how assured am I of its security? But always, I mean, public cloud is excellent as part of the IT infrastructure, the overall solutions available to you, but one should always look at the ramifications, the implications before rushing in. There's always some small print, isn't there? So things like data sovereignty, as I mentioned, and costs, egress costs for public cloud often surprise customers in an unpleasant manner. But by having a combination of services, HPE hardware and software with a pay-per-use model on-premise, you can have both. You could have public cloud and you can have on-premise cloud. And if you want, move between the two, because we do have a, as it mentioned there, we have a hybrid cloud offering as well. So we've had flexible capacity solutions for, I think, about 8 years now. So we've got plenty of experience with it. And the whole philosophy of this is being able to have rapid increases or indeed reductions in capacity, but only pay for what you use, rather than having to make these large capex expenditures and having to over provision because you're not really sure what your growth rates are going to be, getting in a panic if you suddenly need 50% increase in capacity that was unforeseen. If you're using a capex model and the normal procurement cycles, that can be a bit of a nightmare. But if you have a GreenLake solution, then we can very rapidly adapt to your requirements. But again, crucially, you only pay for what you use. So on balance, this should in fact work out no more expensive than a traditional capex model, and could even save you money because you're not having to over provision, and you get the reassurance of enterprise quality support and the widely dispersed HPE support organization, lots of geographic coverage. So it's not like other alternatives out there, just to differentiate a bit. So you don't have to go for the everything to the public cloud model, because as we saw briefly with HPE Cloud Volumes, the public cloud model isn't necessarily suitable for all your applications. If you've got high performance, latency sensitive data that's very important to you, you're more likely to want to have that on-premise than in the public cloud. So you could have certain applications on-premise, other applications, maybe backup archives, into the public cloud. And it's not like standalone private cloud, which we have offered in the past. So we've had things like our Converged Systems 700 platform, which is a cloud-like experience in terms of the management, but with on-premises hardware. But this, the subtle distinction is it's managed and operated by Pointnext services. So even though it's in your data center, you don't have the hassle of day-to-day operations. And it's not like a product financing model, because it's pay as you go on a monthly basis. And it's not like outsourcing or hosting services, because typically if you outsource, then you're really handing over all the responsibilities and all the control to the outsourcing vendor. Whereas with the GreenLake solution, you can retain the control and how the thing should be run and expanded. And here's a little example, a case study that's available on the web, which is it's a luxury products retailer in Japan, and they serve 230 million customers monthly. And they were finding their old legacy storage from another vendor wasn't able to keep up with the transaction rates anymore, because there was just huge amounts of transactions per second at peak periods. So they're a happy GreenLake Flex Capacity customer. As it says, it's like having the features of cloud, but on-premise. We run some services in the cloud, but also need that same flexibility for our data centers. So that, I think, just in that phrase, that's an excellent endorsement of HPE's approach or strategy, which is, we've taken the approach for several years now that hybrid IT is the way that a lot of customers want to go, and they'll have that mix of on-prem and public cloud. And horses for courses. Some things are better for some applications than others. So just to recap, remarkably, I'm keeping to time here, so I'm feeling quite pleased with myself on that score. So intelligent storage, which is the, if you like, the overarching messaging and technology and services around our primary storage platforms. We've got AI-driven, which is dominated by HPE Infosight software, which is world leading, and built for cloud, so you can have the ability to have on-premise or in the cloud and move your data into cloud volumes. As I mentioned, I think earlier, there will be a more in-depth coverage of the Nimble HPE cloud volumes. Slap wrist for me there. HPE cloud volumes in one of our later webinars, so keep an eye out for that. And then as a service experience to really deliver on the shifting expectations that CIOs have for that cloud-like agility and flexibility, but bringing it to on-premise. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that was useful. Just a positioning slide there to remind you of the next webinar. And thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.